From the moment Bella entered our lives, we knew there was something extraordinary about her. It wasn't just her sharp, intelligent eyes or how she seemed to understand every movement we made. It was something deeper, almost instinctual. Bella had a way of seeing the world that felt different, as if she could sense things invisible to us. And one unforgettable night, her unique gift revealed itself in a way we could never have imagined. It was a chilly autumn evening. The wind whispered through tiny cracks in the windows, and fallen leaves twirled in the moonlit garden. Inside, the warmth of a crackling fire filled the living room. My son Ethan laughed softly as he played on the rug, while Bella rested calmly by his side. Everything felt peaceful, almost magical. But then, something changed. Bella, who had been lying still moments before, suddenly lifted her head. Her body stiffened, and a low growl rumbled from her throat. At first, I thought it was nothing. Probably just the wind, I told myself. But there was something in her eyes that unsettled me. She rose slowly, moving toward the glass door that led to the garden. The moonlight reflected off her sleek black fur, and her eyes seemed to glow with an intensity I'd never seen before. "What is it, Bella?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, but she didn't respond. Her gaze was locked on something outside, her growl deepening as though she were protecting us from an unseen danger. A shiver ran down my spine. The cozy room now felt cold, as if the air itself was trying to warn me of something extraordinary about to unfold. Just then, my wife, Sarah, entered the room. She noticed the tension immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern in her voice. Before I could answer, Bella let out a sharp, commanding bark, her voice cutting through the silence like a warning. It was the kind of bark that made your heart race. Bella darted back and forth, clearly on edge. I hesitated for a moment before opening the door, the cold night air rushing in as Bella bolted into the garden. Ethan, curious, started to follow her. I quickly caught his hand. "Stay here," I said firmly, trying to mask the growing unease in my voice. Deep down, I knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary night. Bella stood still in the middle of the garden, her nose pointed toward the farthest corner, where the tall grass swayed in the shadows. She was like a statue, her eyes fixed, her growl constant. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The beam cut through the darkness, but each step toward her felt heavier than the last. My heartbeat thundered in my chest, loud enough to drown out the quiet rustle of the leaves. When the flashlight finally illuminated the grass, I froze. My blood ran cold. There it was, a rattlesnake. Coiled tightly, its scales shimmering faintly under the beam, it was motionless but very much alive. Its unblinking eyes were fixed on the house, its body radiating menace. The danger was unmistakable. Every second felt more urgent as I realized the threat it posed. I glanced at Bella, who had positioned herself between the snake and the house, her body tense and ready, as if she fully understood what was at stake. "Bella, come here," I called, my voice steady but firm. She didn't move. Instead, she took a step closer to the snake, her muscles taut, her focus unwavering. It was as though she knew that this wasn't a threat we could simply walk away from. "Dad, what's going on?" Ethan's small voice called from the doorway. My chest tightened. I needed to keep him inside, safe from what was unfolding. "Stay there, Ethan," I called back, my tone sharper now. Before I could say more, the snake moved. Its body uncoiled in one swift, silent motion. The rattle pierced the stillness of the night, and in an instant, Bella leapt forward. What happened next is something I'll never forget. Bella attacked with a ferocity I didn't think she had. There was no hesitation, no fear, just pure instinct. Every movement of her body screamed determination. The snake, quick and deadly, struck back, its fangs flashing in the dim light, but Bella didn't retreat. She was relentless, her focus unyielding. It was as if she was willing to risk everything to protect us. "Bella," I called, my voice cracking as I watched the battle unfold, powerless to intervene. Every second felt like an eternity, and all I could do was pray that my brave girl would come out unharmed. When it was over, the snake lay motionless in the grass. Bella, panting heavily, stood still, but something was wrong. Her movements became sluggish, and as I moved closer, my heart sank. There it was, the unmistakable bite mark on her front paw. A soft whimper escaped her before she collapsed. "Dad, is Bella okay?" Ethan's voice trembled as tears welled in his eyes. I held him close, trying to reassure him, even as panic coursed through me. "Sarah, get the car! Now!" I shouted to my wife, scooping Bella into my arms. She felt heavy, her warmth pressing against me. In that moment, everything shifted inside me. Bella had risked her life to protect us, and now it was our turn to save her. As we raced toward the car, I glanced down into her eyes. There was pain, but also trust, like she knew that whatever happened, we wouldn't let her down. The garden had always been Ethan's sanctuary, a place where his laughter filled the air and his wild imagination turned ordinary afternoons into grand adventures. Bella was always by his side, a steadfast companion who seemed to share in his joy. The bond they shared was extraordinary. Bella wasn't just a pet, she was his guardian, always watching, always protecting. That day had started no differently. The golden light of late afternoon poured over the yard, casting long shadows across the grass. Ethan skipped around, laughing as Bella trotted behind him, her tail wagging with every step. But then, Bella stopped abruptly. Her ears perked up and her body stiffened. Her tail dropped, and she sniffed the air, her posture tense. Something wasn't right. At first, it seemed subtle. Bella began circling Ethan, her movements deliberate and cautious. Her nose twitched as she scanned the yard, her focus unwavering. "What is it, Bella?" Ethan oblivious to the growing tension. From the patio, I watched with a book in my hands, but the unease in Bella's behavior was impossible to ignore. Her instincts were rarely wrong, and right now, something had her on high alert. Then it happened. Bella let out a bark, sharp, loud, and commanding. It startled both me and Ethan. Her gaze was fixed on the far edge of the yard, where the grass grew wild and untamed. Bella barked again, this time with an urgency that sent a shiver down my spine. "Stay right there, Ethan," I called, setting my book aside and moving toward them. My heart began to pound, even though I still couldn't see what had Bella so riled up. When I reached Ethan, Bella was standing firm, her body positioned protectively in front of him. Her eyes were locked on the tall grass, and her low growl rumbled like a warning. "What is it, girl?" I asked softly. But Bella didn't respond the way she normally would. No wagging tail, no quick glance back at me for reassurance. She was focused, every muscle in her body poised and ready, her growl growing deeper. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A faint movement in the grass. The sway of a single blade. The subtle shift of something trying to stay hidden. My breath caught. Bella barked again, sharp and commanding, the sound slicing through the stillness of the yard. I couldn't see exactly what it was yet, but one thing was clear. Bella wasn't going to let it get anywhere near Ethan. "Sarah?" I shouted, my voice tight with urgency. My wife appeared at the doorway, immediately sensing the tension. "What's wrong?" she asked, but I didn't have time to explain. "Take Ethan inside," I said firmly, my tone leaving no room for argument. Sarah moved quickly, scooping Ethan into her arms even as he tried to resist. "But Bella," he began, his voice trembling with worry. "She'll be fine," I reassured him, though my heart clenched with doubt. "Go inside now." Reluctantly, Ethan let Sarah carry him away, his small hands clutching at Bella's leash until the very last second. As they disappeared into the house, I turned back to Bella. She hadn't moved an inch. Her growls were deeper now, her stance unwavering. Whatever was out there, Bella was ready to face it, head on. I grabbed a sturdy stick from the garden and took a cautious step forward. Bella didn't budge. She stood firm, as if drawing an invisible line between the danger lurking in the grass, and the family she was determined to protect. In that moment, my trust in her was absolute. I moved closer to the edge of the yard, my eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of what had disturbed her. The fading sunlight made it harder to see, and the long creeping shadows only added to my unease. Bella stayed by my side now, her growl low and steady, her body coiled like a spring ready to unleash. Then I saw it. Barely visible at first, but unmistakable. A serpent's head emerged from the tall grass, its unblinking eyes catching the dim light. A rattlesnake. A jolt of fear shot through me, and for a brief moment I froze. My instincts screamed at me to retreat, but I couldn't. Not with Bella standing her ground. Bella didn't hesitate. She took a step forward, placing herself squarely between me and the snake. Her growl deepened, a clear warning that she wasn't backing down. The snake stayed motionless, but its very presence made my pulse race. I tightened my grip on the stick, knowing every second mattered. Bella barked again, louder and sharper this time, the sound cutting through the quiet yard like a warning bell. The snake flicked its tongue, its slow, deliberate movements sending a clear message: it wasn't going anywhere. The tension in the air was thick. One wrong move could provoke it, and the last thing I wanted was for anyone, especially Bella, to get hurt. "Easy, girl," I murmured, though my voice trembled as I spoke. Bella didn't take her eyes off the snake. She stood strong, unwavering, her every instinct screaming to protect. Bella didn't take her eyes off the snake. Her body was tense, her stance firm, radiating a quiet but powerful determination. I wanted to act, to do something, but Bella seemed to have the situation under control, at least for now. Her courage was unshakable, her focus razor-sharp. I couldn't help but marvel at her instincts, her bravery. She wasn't just a dog, she was our protector, a guardian angel, wrapped in fur. As the standoff continued, the tension in the air was almost unbearable. Every second felt like an eternity, and I had no idea how this was going to end. But one thing was certain: Bella wasn't going to back down. She was ready to do whatever it took to protect us. And in that moment, as fear gripped my chest, I realized just how much we relied on her. She wasn't just a pet. She was family, irreplaceable. Taking a deep breath, I stepped closer to where Bella stood. My heart pounded with every step, each one heavier than the last. Bella's unwavering gaze stayed locked on the tall grass, her growl a constant, steady warning. I didn't know what I would find when I reached her, but I knew one thing. I had never been more grateful for her presence than I was right then. The air felt heavy, thick with tension, and every tiny sound seemed amplified. Each rustling leaf, every whisper of wind felt like a warning. Bella growled low and steady, her body rigid, her stance protective. And then I saw it. Coiled tightly in the tall grass, its scales catching faint glimmers of light, was a rattlesnake. Its head was raised, its eyes cold and calculating, like it was sizing us up. It didn't move, but its presence was enough to send a chill down my spine. Bella didn't flinch. She stood her ground, a living shield between the snake and the house. Every muscle in her body was tense, her gaze locked on the threat. Fear and awe rushed through me. She knew exactly what she was facing. And yet, she didn't back down. "Bella, easy," I whispered, my voice shaking despite my attempt to stay calm. The snake shifted slightly, its movement slow but deliberate, like it was testing the ground. Then came the rattle, a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the stillness, sending a jolt of fear straight through me. My grip tightened on the stick in my hand, but deep down, I knew I wasn't quick enough to use it if it came to that. Bella barked sharply, the sound fierce and commanding, so powerful that even I flinched. Her bark was a challenge, daring the snake to make its move. I took a cautious step back, not wanting to provoke the rattler. My eyes flicked toward the house, where I could see Sarah and Ethan watching through the window. Their faces were pale with worry. Ethan's small hands were pressed against the glass, his lips forming Bella's name in a silent plea. The weight of their trust pressed heavily on me. I had to act, but before I could, the snake struck. In a flash, the rattlesnake uncoiled, its head snapping toward us with lightning speed. Bella lunged forward without hesitation, her teeth bared, a blur of motion as she met the threat head-on. The collision was fierce. Bella's growls blended with the snake's sharp hisses, the sound cutting through the stillness of the garden. I stood frozen, powerless to do anything but watch as Bella fought with everything she had. Her movements were sharp and precise, her instincts guiding her every strike. She dodged the snake's vicious lunges, her teeth snapping at its coiled body. But the snake was dangerously fast. Each strike came quicker than the last, its fangs gleaming in the dim light. My heart pounded with every near miss, each second stretching into an eternity. I wanted to act, to help, but I knew stepping in would only make things worse. This was Bella's fight, and she wasn't backing down. The rattler lunged again, its fangs aimed directly at Bella. This time, she was ready. With a powerful leap, she intercepted the strike, her jaws clamping onto the snake midair. The snake writhed violently, its tail thrashing in a desperate attempt to escape. But Bella held firm, her growls fierce and unrelenting. This wasn't just a fight for her. It was a fight for us, for the family she had silently vowed to protect. With one final, powerful shake, Bella flung the snake to the ground. It landed with a thud, its body limp and motionless. The garden fell silent, save for the sound of my ragged breathing. For a moment, relief washed over me. It was over. Bella had won. But then I saw her stagger. She took a step back, her legs unsteady. Her breathing was labored, and as she lifted her paw, I saw it, a small but unmistakable bite mark. "Bella," I called, rushing to her side. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with pain, but also a quiet determination. She had done her part, and now she needed me. I dropped the stick and scooped her into my arms as gently as I could. She whimpered softly, but she didn't resist. Her body was heavy, her breath shallow. "Sarah," I shouted, my voice breaking. "Get the car ready." I turned toward the house, my mind racing. There was no time to waste. Bella had risked everything to protect us, and now it was our turn to save her. The venom was taking its toll, and every second mattered. Ethan cried out as I carried Bella inside. "Is she okay, Dad? Is Bella going to be okay?" His tear-streaked face broke my heart, but I didn't have the words to comfort him. "We're going to get her help," I said, keeping my voice firm despite the fear gnawing at me. Sarah grabbed the keys, and we rushed out the door. Ethan clutched Bella's leash tightly in his small hands, refusing to let go. As we sped toward the nearest veterinary clinic, I cradled Bella in the back seat. Her body was heavy in my arms, her breathing shallow. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, meeting mine with a look that seemed to say, "I trust you." It wasn't just a look, it was a plea, a reminder of the bond we shared. I gently stroked her fur, whispering words of comfort even as my throat tightened with emotion. "You're so brave, Bella," I murmured softly. "We're going to get you through this." The minutes stretched into what felt like hours as the car raced down the dark road. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on all of us. Ethan sat beside me, his small hand resting on Bella's back, as silent tears streaked down his face. Sarah glanced at us through the rearview mirror, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. In that moment, I realized how much Bella meant to us. She wasn't just a dog. She was our protector, our companion, our hero. Finally, the clinic appeared, its lights cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope. I carried Bella inside, my heart pounding with urgency. "She's been bitten by a rattlesnake," I told the vet, my voice barely steady. The team sprang into action, their calm efficiency clashing with the panic clawing at my chest. A stretcher appeared in seconds. I gently lowered Bella onto it, her limp body pressing heavily against my arms. Her breathing was labored, but her eyes opened slightly. In them, I saw that same quiet determination. She was holding on. "Anti-venom, immediately," the vet ordered as they wheeled Bella away. Watching her disappear behind the swinging doors, I felt a flicker of hope. Bella had fought so hard for us. Now it was our turn to fight for her. I tried to follow, but one of the staff members stepped in front of me, her voice gentle but firm. "We'll take it from here. Please wait in the lobby." Her words were meant to reassure me, but instead, they felt like a door slamming shut. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. Then Sarah placed a hand on my shoulder, gently guiding me back into the waiting area. The room was eerily quiet, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional shuffle of paperwork. Ethan clung to me, his small hand gripping my shirt as if letting go would let the fear consume him. "Is Bella going to die, Dad?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The question hit me like a knife to the chest. I crouched down and wrapped an arm around him. "She's strong, Ethan," I said, though I wasn't sure if I was trying to convince him or myself. "She's a fighter." Sarah sat beside us, her face pale but composed. She reached for Ethan, pulling him into her arms. "Bella's brave," she said softly. "If anyone can get through this, it's her." Her words were comforting, but they hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. None of us spoke after that. The minutes crawled by, each one stretching into an eternity. I couldn't sit still. I paced the small room, my hands running through my hair as the night's events replayed over and over in my mind. I kept seeing Bella's stance in the garden, her unwavering courage as she faced the snake, and then the moment she fell, her body weakened by the venom. The thought of losing her was unbearable. She wasn't just our dog, she was family, a protector, a constant presence in our lives, and now she was fighting for her life. An hour passed, maybe two. I lost track of time. The waiting was torturous. Every time the door to the exam area opened, my heart leapt, only to sink when it wasn't about Bella. Ethan had fallen asleep in Sarah's lap, his tiny hand still clutching Bella's leash. Sarah met my gaze, her expression a mix of worry and determination. "She'll make it," she said, her voice steady but soft, as if willing the words to be true. Finally, the vet emerged. He looked tired, but there was a faint smile on his face. "Bella's stable," he said, and relief flooded over me like a wave. "We administered the antivenom in time. She's still weak, and the next 24 hours are critical, but she's responding well." I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Can we see her?" I asked, my voice trembling. The vet nodded and motioned for us to follow. Sarah gently nudged Ethan awake. "Bella's okay," she whispered, and Ethan's eyes widened with hope. Together, we walked down the hallway to the recovery room. My heart clenched when I saw her. Bella lay on a padded mat, an IV attached to her front leg. Her breathing was slow but steady, and her eyes fluttered open as we entered. Ethan ran to her side, kneeling down and gently stroking her head. "Bella," he whispered, tears streaming down his cheeks. Bella's tail gave the faintest wag, a small yet unmistakable sign of recognition. It was enough to bring tears to my own eyes. I knelt beside Ethan, running my hand along Bella's fur. "You're so brave," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You saved us." Sarah joined us, placing her hand on my shoulder as she leaned down to kiss Bella's head. "Thank you," she murmured. "Thank you for protecting our family." The vet explained the next steps: monitoring, medication, and plenty of rest, but his words faded into the background. All I could focus on was Bella. She had fought so hard, enduring pain and danger to protect us. Now it was our turn to fight for her, to ensure she got everything she needed to recover. We stayed by Bella's side for hours, sitting quietly as she rested. Ethan whispered stories to her, recounting their adventures in the garden and all the games they'd played together. "You're my best friend, Bella," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "Please don't leave me." Bella's eyes flickered open. Though she couldn't move much, the look she gave Ethan was filled with love and quiet reassurance. That night, as we drove home, the weight of the day pressed heavily on us. Bella would stay at the clinic for observation, but the vet's words stayed with me. "She's strong," he had said. "She's got the heart of a fighter." As I tucked Ethan into bed, those words echoed in my mind. "She's going to be okay," I told him. For the first time that day, I truly believed it. Later, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my thoughts returned to Bella. Her bravery, her loyalty, her unwavering love. She had risked everything for us, without hesitation or fear. Bella wasn't just our dog. She was our guardian, our protector, our hero. The morning after the attack, the house felt quieter than usual. Bella's absence left a tangible void, as if something vital was missing. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting warm beams across the living room. Ethan sat on the couch, clutching Bella's favorite toy, a soft, worn-out ball she loved to carry around. In the kitchen, Sarah stood by the window, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. She stared out at the garden, where it had all happened. Meanwhile, I was on the phone with the vet, my heart pounding as I waited for an update. "Bella had a stable night," the vet said, his tone calm but measured. "She's showing signs of improvement, but she'll need to stay under observation for at least another day." Relief swept over me, though it was tempered by the reality that her recovery would take time. I thanked him and hung up, turning to Sarah. She had been watching me anxiously, her eyes full of unspoken questions. "She's holding on," I said. Sarah nodded, her expression softening. But the worry in her eyes lingered, refusing to fully fade. Ethan looked up from the couch, his face pale but hopeful. "Can we visit her today?" he asked quietly. I knelt beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "Not today, buddy. Bella needs to rest. But we'll see her very soon, I promise." Ethan nodded reluctantly, his fingers tightening around Bella's toy. "She's so brave," Ethan whispered, more to himself than to me. I nodded, my throat tightening at his words. "She is, Ethan. She's the bravest." As the day stretched on, the garden seemed to call to me. It was where everything had happened, where Bella had faced down danger to protect us. I stepped outside, the grass cool beneath my feet, and walked toward the spot where the rattlesnake had appeared. The tall grass was trampled, the area marked forever by Bella's courage. Standing there, I felt a wave of emotions, Gratitude for what she had done, sorrow for what she had endured. She had put herself in harm's way for us, for Ethan. That kind of loyalty, that kind of courage, it was something I could never repay. After a while, Sarah joined me. Her presence always grounded me. "It's hard to believe it happened here," she said quietly, her eyes scanning the garden. I nodded, still searching for the right words. Sarah placed a gentle hand on my arm. "Bella will recover," she said, her voice steady and sure. "And when she does, we'll make sure she knows how much she means to us." I swallowed hard and nodded again. Sarah always had a way of finding the light, even in the darkest moments. Later that evening, Ethan approached me, clutching a piece of paper in his small hands. "I made this for Bella," he said, holding it up. It was a drawing of Bella standing tall in the garden, her tail wagging, her eyes bright with life. Above her, in bold, uneven letters, he had written, "Bella the Brave." My heart swelled as I looked at it. "It's beautiful, Ethan," I said, pulling him into a hug. "Bella will love it." That night, as we got ready for bed, the house felt emptier than ever. Bella's absence was everywhere, in the quiet living room, in the stillness of Ethan's room, and in the silence outside, where her bark would usually echo. But even in that silence, there was hope. She was a fighter, and she was getting the care she needed. All we could do now was wait and trust in her strength. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I thought about all the moments that had led us to this point. Bella had entered our lives like a quiet storm, her presence reshaping everything. She wasn't just a dog. She was our protector, our friend, and now, our hero. Closing my eyes, I whispered a silent promise. "We'll get through this together, Bella. Just hold on." The next morning dawned with a renewed sense of hope. The first thing I did was call the vet, my heart racing as the line connected. Each second felt like an eternity until I finally heard his voice. "Bella's showing improvement," he said, and relief washed over me like a wave. "She's responding well to the treatment, and her vitals are stabilizing. She's not out of the woods yet, but the progress is encouraging." At breakfast, I shared the news with Sarah and Ethan. "She's getting better," I said, unable to hide the smile breaking across my face. Ethan's face lit up, his eyes sparkling with relief. "Can we visit her today?" he asked, clutching Bella's leash tightly in his hands. This time, I nodded. "Yes, buddy, we can visit her." Ethan's smile was so wide it brought tears to my eyes. The drive to the clinic was quiet, the weight of anticipation heavy in the air. Ethan sat in the back seat, clutching his drawing of Bella, the one with "Bella the Brave" written across the top. Sarah held my hand as I drove, her steady presence grounding me. The closer we got, the faster my heart raced. I didn't know what to expect, but I was ready to see Bella, to let her know we were there for her, just as she had been there for us. When we arrived, the vet greeted us with a reassuring smile. "She's still weak," he said, "but she's alert." He led us to the recovery area, and when I saw her, my breath caught. Bella lay on a soft mat, her front paw bandaged, her eyes half open. But as we approached, her gaze focused on us, and I saw the spark of recognition. Her tail wagged faintly, a small but unmistakable sign that she was happy to see us. Ethan rushed to Bella's side, carefully kneeling beside her and gently placing his drawing on the floor. "Bella, I made this for you," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. Bella's eyes shifted toward the drawing, and though she could barely move, her tail wagged again, a small but powerful sign of recognition. My heart swelled with gratitude. Sarah and I knelt beside Ethan, stroking Bella's fur and whispering words of love and encouragement. "You're so brave," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "We're so proud of you." Bella's eyes met mine, and in that moment, I felt an overwhelming connection, a silent understanding of the bond we shared. She had fought so hard for us, and now it was our turn to be strong for her. The vet stood nearby, explaining Bella's recovery process. "She'll need plenty of rest and time," he said, his tone reassuring. "But with your care, she should recover fully." I nodded, hanging on to every word. We were ready to do whatever it took to help her heal, no matter how long it took. As we prepared to leave, Ethan hesitated. He placed his small hand gently on Bella's paw. "I'll come back tomorrow," he whispered. "I love you, Bella." The words hung in the air, raw and sincere. Bella blinked slowly, her way of saying she understood. The drive home was quieter than before, but the atmosphere felt lighter. Hope replaced the weight of fear that had gripped us the day before. "She's going to be okay," Ethan said softly, more to himself than to us. Sarah turned in her seat to look at him. "Yes, she is," she said, her voice filled with quiet certainty. That night, as we sat together in the living room, the house didn't feel as empty. Bella's absence was still noticeable, but there was a warmth now, a reassurance that she would be home with us soon. Ethan clutched his drawing tightly, occasionally glancing at it and smiling. "She really is the bravest," he said, and Sarah and I couldn't agree more. The day we brought Bella home was filled with quiet anticipation. The vet had given us careful instructions, medications, limited activity, and constant monitoring. Ethan, clutching Bella's leash and his drawing, could barely contain his excitement. Sarah and I exchanged hopeful glances as we prepared the house, making sure everything was ready for Bella's comfort. When we arrived at the clinic, Bella's wagging tail greeted us even before we entered her room. Though her movements were slow and her eyes still showed traces of fatigue, her spirit was unmistakable. As we approached, her ears perked up slightly at the sound of Ethan's voice. "Bella!" Ethan cried, rushing to her side. Bella's tail thumped against the mat in response, a rhythm of pure joy that melted my heart. The vet reviewed the final steps of her care as Sarah and I listened closely. Ethan knelt beside Bella, whispering softly to her, as if the rest of the world didn't exist. "You're coming home now," he said, gently stroking her fur. Bella's gaze softened, her trust in us evident in every movement. He promised. The car ride home was filled with calm and relief. Bella lay across Ethan's lap, her head resting comfortably as he ran his fingers through her fur. "I'll take care of you, Bella," he promised. Sarah glanced back from the passenger seat, her eyes glistening as she watched them. "We all will," she said softly. When we arrived home, Bella's tail wagged as she stepped out of the car. Her movements were slow and deliberate, but there was a quiet determination in the way she carried herself. She paused at the threshold of the house, her nose twitching as if reacquainting herself with the familiar scent of home. Ethan guided her inside, leading her to the soft bed we had prepared by the fireplace. Bella settled in, her body relaxing as she let out a deep, contented sigh. It was as though she knew she was finally safe. The days that followed were a delicate balance of care and patience. Bella's energy returned slowly but steadily. Her movements grew more confident, her eyes brighter with each passing day. Ethan was her constant companion, always by her side, reading stories, showing her drawings, or simply sitting quietly with her. "You're my hero, Bella," he would say, his voice full of love. And Bella would respond with a gentle wag of her tail, her eyes filled with affection. One evening, as the sun set and the room filled with the warm glow of the fire, I found myself reflecting on everything Bella had done for us. Her courage, her loyalty, her unwavering love. She had protected us without hesitation, facing danger head-on because that's who she was. Bella wasn't just a dog, she was family. She had taught us about bravery, love, and the strength of the bonds we share. As I looked over at her resting peacefully by the fire with Ethan by her side, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "Thank you, Bella," I whispered, "for everything." Her tail thumped softly against the floor, her way of letting me know she understood. She had faced danger without hesitation, placing herself between us and harm. Her bravery wasn't just instinct, it was an act of love, a testament to the unbreakable bond we shared. Sitting beside her now, I realized how much Bella had taught me about courage, loyalty, and the depths of unconditional love. Sarah joined me on the couch, her hand resting gently on mine. "She's amazing, isn't she?" she said softly. I nodded, my gaze resting on Ethan, who lay curled up next to Bella. The two of them shared a quiet moment of peace, the kind that spoke volumes without a single word. "She's more than amazing," I said, my voice low with emotion. "She's family." That night, as Bella dozed by the fire, her breathing steady and calm, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had given us so much more than we could ever repay. And now it was our turn, to care for her, to cherish her, and to honor the bond that had brought us closer than ever. Bella wasn't just a dog. She was our protector, our inspiration, and a constant reminder of the extraordinary power of love. It's been months since that fateful day, and not a single day goes by that I don't marvel at Bella's strength and resilience. The garden, once a place marked by fear and danger, has become her sanctuary again. She walks its familiar paths with Ethan by her side, her steps confident, her tail wagging with an energy that fills my heart with joy. The scar on her paw is a subtle reminder of the battle she fought, a symbol of her bravery and the love that saw us through. Bella taught us that love isn't just about loyalty, it's about sacrifice, courage, and the quiet moments that make a family whole. And for that, we will always be grateful.